Hi everyone, I'm Scott Schneider. This is Stereo Niche. This week I'm going to kick off a new series, and it's something that I've been doing for a long time, and I thought maybe I would, share that with you as well. And that's monitoring what's going on in the collectible vintage audio market. So I do that by just seeing what's selling, what's out there, and I sort of check multiple different categories of things, but one of those categories is what's on the high end of selling prices. What are some of those kind of units that go for, $10,000, $15,000? I'm sure there's many we're familiar with, and we'll see some of those, but a lot of times it's things that you never knew existed really, or you never knew that things could go for that kind of price and it had that sort of collectability. So stick around and let's take a look at some of those. All right, well, let's kick it off with the JBL Paragon. Probably something just about everyone recognizes if you've followed along with vintage audio for any length of time. At some point you have seen one of the pictures of the Paragon. Was the largest, the top of the line model for JBL for quite a long time. They launched these in 1957 and they actually went all the way through 1983 and were in production. When they came out, they cost $1,830. And if that was equated to 2022, they'd be $19,000 today. So, not a small sum of money by any means, but they were quite unique. They certainly speak of MCM era, the 1950s and 60s. They certainly look the part. They were 9 feet wide. So not small. Now they weren't one piece, they looked like one piece, but they were actually 3 pieces that came together. The 2 speaker units were sort of joined by this curved front piece here, which is called the curved radial refraction channel integration panel. Quite a mouthful, but cool, really cool. I've never seen one in real life. I would love to. Just something I've not run across. I almost got to see one once. It came up for sale and was sold before I actually got to go see it. But I came close, and I'm sure that there's more out there that eventually we'll run across. This particular auction, well, it's not an auction. It was just for sale, and it looks like they took best offer. So we don't know exactly what they sold it for, but I've seen them sell anywhere from as low as I think just under 5,000 all the way up to 15, even 20, I think, on occasion. But they run the gamut depending on timing, condition, location, all those sorts of variables. But definitely one of the vintage audio pieces that is well regarded, highly collectible. And if anything of the top JBL series is of early JBL is going to be highly collectible. So this is right at the peak there of collectability for JBL gear. But quite cool. In this one shot, this link from you can see the top of it. You can actually see the line there where the 2 pieces separate and can be broken down. It's still being 9 feet wide, so each one of those is 4.5 feet. Still would be a pretty good challenge to move around, to ship and locate and find a place in your house for a 9-foot wide piece of furniture. I've never heard that they, as far as the sound of them, that they were phenomenal sounding, but well, at this stage, if you're a collector, it doesn't matter. These are, it's just like a sports car. If you're a car collector, you don't care that a vintage car can't go as fast as a modern car. That's irrelevant. It's all about the history and the design. There's lots of things that make it collectible. It's not all about performance in the collectible arena, if you will. So that's the JBL Paragon. All right, this is certainly something I've never seen in person, not any model. And this is a record cutting lathe to make your own record. Not something of interest for me specifically, but I can certainly see someone who is a record collector would probably want something like this in their collection. I did a little bit reading some years ago. There's a bit of a following and a group of folks that are into making their own records. This was one that they made one record at a time. Certainly couldn't make volumes, but these I think are typically set up for mono. Although I think you can get a needle to cut for stereo. They're pretty expensive these days. The needles alone. This one, it wasn't at an auction, it was best offer. I think I've seen these sell from anywhere from 6 to 10K. They're pretty valuable, pretty expensive, pretty rare. So the rarity makes them quite expensive. But quite a cool thing to see out there and see what people are collecting. I would like to see one being used and and how a record is cut. I would like to see that in person at least once in my life, but quite cool. Thought you would like it. Well, we certainly can't talk about high-end collectible audio without talking about probably the most well-known collectible pioneer, the largest one ever made, the SX 1980. When they talk about monster receivers, this is right up there at the top, and may not be the most powerful, but certainly very close, and probably the most well-known, I'll say. If you think monster receiver, this is probably the one that comes to mind first, and it is certainly a beast. I do have one of these. Mine is not in good shape. That's why it's not in my showroom. But, eventually it'll be cleaned up enough that I think it may be presentable. But they're not all that uncommon. I've run across them quite a few times. In fact, I kick myself. When I first got into the hobby, I had the opportunity there was one on Craigslist with the original box for $1,500, and it sat there for a couple of weeks. And, the guy couldn't sell it very quickly. He finally did, but I kicked myself for not getting it. I looked at it and decided for whatever reason not to get, well, the reason was at the time I just didn't have enough space. That was the real reason, but certainly wish I would have figured it out and found a place for it. But anyway, they are going for a good bit. I've seen them go all the way up to 15K for ones that are in very good condition with the box. So yeah, would have been a good investment on my part if I would have picked that one up. But the 1980 is I think if for just about any collector, it's probably right up there in the top 10 of units that I think every collector would like to have. Obviously, if you're a pioneer collector, it's probably the #1 item, for just about any pioneer collector. But here they are. This is it. This one looks like it only had one bid, sold for the asking price of $10,350. So there you have it. All right, well, there you go. That's some of the stuff that's been selling on the high end of vintage audio collectibles. Probably going to see the Paragons and the SX 1980s. You'll see those with some good frequency. They're not all that rare, but they are on that upper echelon of collectability for both of those brands. So if you see one out in the wild, and you happen to get a good price for it, get one of those things. Don't miss your opportunity like I did several years ago and seeing it sitting there languishing on Craigslist and not picking it up. I really do still kick myself for that one, but in any case, I'm sure there'll be another one come along one day. Record lathes, who knew that those were so collectible? I certainly didn't, because it's not really something in my wheelhouse, if you will. But interesting that those are out there, and would love to see one in action someday. Not something I want to own, but I'd certainly love to see how they work. That's always quite interesting to see the process for those. So anyway, hope you enjoyed all of that. If you don't want to miss the next video, hit that subscribe button right now. And thank you guys for tuning in. See you next time.